going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Thursday edition. It's Thursday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. We are sponsored by Vivid Picks. We'll have a nice deal for you later in the show there. Just wanted to thank Cliffy for filling in, going solo on Tuesday. A lot of people tuned in for that one. A lot of people solo shows are incredibly difficult. I don't think people realize talking to yourself for an hour is not as easy as it sounds to be. Or what I don't know what I just said, but you know what I mean.
Well, not out loud anyway. I do it in my head all the time.
Yeah, but it was difficult. I did solo shows for 2 or 3 years before joining Stochastic, and that's probably why I'm crazy. But we're sponsored by Vivid Picks. Like I said, I need to keep saying that because I'm gonna mess that up. We have a 11 gamer here tonight, late hammer, that we're obviously gonna have to talk about. It's Edmonton is in San Jose tonight, and then tomorrow the Sharks travel to Vegas. So it's back-to-back late hammer Sharks night, and it's just like I'm kind of hoping that someone just pulls the fire alarm in that arena and they can't figure it out until February. Yes, and as someone pointed out, we do have a min-priced goalie tonight. We will get to that. You liking this slate outside of the Sharks?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I like about it is there are obviously some high-octane offenses on the slate, but a lot of them are in good matchups, and what that does is it should spread out the ownership. We'll get to Edmonton. Obviously, there should be a lot on Edmonton, but Tampa Bay at home to Chicago, Dallas against Columbus, Vancouver's in Ottawa, Detroit's at home to Montreal. Detroit, at the very least, has had a great top line. Colorado at home to Seattle. Seattle's not been that great. Pittsburgh's on their third string goalie going into Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is just beating the holy hell out of everybody. I hate when there are slates and there's a bunch of even matchups and then you have Edmonton and San Jose. But the fact that there are so many teams in pretty good spots, so many good teams and good lines in good spots, I like a slate like that.
Yeah, and I guess it kind of plays in our favor a little bit because Jay Woodcroft decided to balance out his lines. So McDavid and Draisaitl are not together. Still, they're going to be on the power play together. But if they loaded that top line in San Jose tonight, that just would have been a mess. They would have been 40-50%. But they still are going to get a ton of ownership tonight. We should get into this slate. Before we do, we had someone in our Discord reach out saying that his daughter has a brain tumor and she's getting brain surgery today. So if you guys can give some positive thoughts, vibes to the man in Discord. If you're not in the Discord, I'm not going to dox him. I'm not going to say his name, but just know that we're thinking about you, thinking about your family. So good vibes only there.
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly cannot possibly imagine that. Obviously, we're pulling for you. We're pulling for her. Good luck. Hope to hear some very good news very soon.
Yeah. So hopefully that goes well, and then we can announce that on a later show. Before we get into the slate, make sure to give us a like and subscribe so you can keep up with all of our shows, giveaways, and much more. Once you subscribe, hit that notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. If YouTube isn't for you, you can find all of our content on the Stochastic podcast channels. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. You can obviously be a part of the Hall of Fame, Stochastic Hall of Fame, by changing your avatar on DraftKings and FanDuel. By downloading the avatar at stochastic.com/avatar. You have to place in the top 3 of a contest with over 5K contestants. Then you tweet the win to us, or X the win to. I don't even know how to say that anymore. Then you win 1 free month of Stochastic package of your choice. You can only win 1 time a year. Let's get into this slate. Cliffy's got to go see the Marvels.
I do.
And we're going to see it tomorrow. So let's start with, we will. Let's start with a banger. Not really. It's a pretty miserable game. New York Islanders with a 2.5 total heading into Boston. The Bruins have a 2.9 total. Pierre Engvall makes 1 turnover, and he's scratched. Good times. I don't really know what to make of this game. It's a 5.5 total. There are a ton of 6.5s, tons of 7s. I guess I know what to make of it. Like it's going to be hard for me to get anywhere here in 1 to 3. If anything, it's going to be on the Boston side there at home. They dictate matchups, but still, scratching Engvall, I don't know, man. Like that line is so good. He made one mistake. I don't know who's taking his spot. We'll have to wait and see. Could be Wahlstrom. Could be someone else.
A beat writer literally just tweeted, assuming Horvat plays tonight, he's with the team. He traveled with the team. He thinks it's going to be Horvat, Barzal, Wahlstrom, and then Anders Lee takes Engvall's spot on the second line.
Well, I'll let you take it away. Do you have any interest in this game?
Not particularly. I do like the Boston top line here. I probably should mention that. Like, one thing Boston is doing is they're not using Pasternak in that shutdown role, right? They're using Pasternak and Zacha against second and third lines. Now, the Islanders' third line in particular has not been very good this year. The second line was really good with Engvall there. Now, with Anders Lee there instead, like he's just, if this was 5 years ago, I would say, okay, yeah, they could probably still be pretty good. Anders Lee, since those knee surgeries, he's still an effective player, a useful player. He's just not as good as he was. Like, that's the problem. And I kind of like that Boston one going into that second line, and especially that third line. They're really not that expensive. Marchand being on the top line over James Van Riemsdyk is going to add a couple grand, but, it's going to leave their ownership in low single digits. It's just you're facing Ilya Sorokin, right? That's kind of one thing that worries me. It's still no Charlie McAvoy. Like we mentioned on Tuesday's show, he's a guy that can really help them move the puck. And when you're missing him and Matt Grzelcyk, those are two pretty important puck movers for them. So if I take anything out of this game, it's probably Boston 1. I don't mind that matchup for them at all. It's just, can they get enough past Sorokin? It comes down to whether Sorokin, kind of bails the Islanders out here tonight or not. Like and he can do that. He does that a lot, actually. Like, that's the big concern. So I do like Boston 1. Other than that, not a whole lot of interest for me on the Islanders side. Like a Horvat, Wahlstrom, Barzal line, I would have interest in, because I think that would be an extremely low-owned combination if we only get that news at warm-ups, right? Like, a lot of people won't have that in their portfolio, but in a single entry, I don't know if that would be necessary. There are enough low-owned spots elsewhere, so I think it's just Boston 1 for me.
Yeah, there are a ton of low-owned projected lines that I like tonight that would trump that Islanders line. We'll save that for another slate. Let's move on to the next one here. Montreal with a 3 total heading into Detroit. The Wangs have a 3.6 total. This is an interesting game. It seems that Shane Gostisbehere is going to be out tonight. I don't know if that's injury related, healthy scratch related, personal related. I don't know. He's out. Now, DeBrincat, Larkin, Raymond, around the same price as Boston 1, coming in projected a little bit under 5%, fully correlated against a team that takes a truckload of penalties. Now, I have interest there. I'll let you talk about Jake Wallman, who's replacing him on the power play, and how you think that affects it. Now, on the flip side, Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky projected under 0.5%, and let's not pretend here like Detroit's a defensive juggernaut. They are not a very good team defensively. Montreal 1 is 16,400. They let me down a little bit the other night against Tampa. This is a better matchup, though. 0.3%. I have some interest in that Montreal top line.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll just start on the Montreal side real quick. Like, offensively, I thought they've looked good, because I've watched both games since Slavkovsky got moved to the top line. I thought they've looked good offensively. They're a mess defensively. I think that's kind of about what you'd expect from them, right? 59 shot attempts, 3.3 expected goals per 60 minutes since Slavkovsky got moved up there. They're up to nearly 30 minutes together. It's not a lot, obviously. Slav is playing 16 to 18 minutes, which is a lot more than you would play elsewhere in the lineup. The other thing is Detroit uses their second line in that shutdown matchup. Not often, but a little bit. And, we keep talking about it. Just about any line with Andrew Kopp on it is not a good defensive line, at least since he got to Detroit. JT Compher's helping stabilize things a little bit. But, Olli Mata on Detroit's defense is having a pretty bad season. Jeff Petrie has been a healthy scratch a lot because he's been having a bad season. Like, once you get past Wallman and Cedar, there's ways you can take advantage of that Detroit defense. I really don't mind Montreal 1 here. The thing, like, there are a bunch of lines, or not a bunch, but there's a handful of lines around that 16K mark. I think Nashville is one of them. Columbus is going to be another one, where they're all around 16K and they're all coming in under 1% owned. And it's like, what differentiates Montreal from the others? And it's a couple things. One, Detroit takes a lot of penalties. They're at 3.8 times shorthanded per game. That's like the league average is 3.5. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it puts them in the top 10 in that regard. And Montreal's also drawing a lot of power plays. They're getting the 4th most power plays per game of any team in the league. And you get Suzuki and Caulfield on the top unit. And it's not like Detroit's penalty kill is exceptional. Like, it's not awful, but it's not great. I don't think you necessarily have to go to Montreal 1 in a single entry. If I'm playing 20 max, if I'm playing 100 lineups, 150 lineups, I would absolutely get like 1 to 2% Montreal's top line in there. The second line for Montreal is also interesting, but they're coming in with a little bit more ownership. You only get one guy on the top power play unit. So I think I want to get as much exposure to the top power play as I can. So it's Montreal 1. I honestly don't hate the idea of Montreal 2 here tonight. They're also coming in under 1% owned. They're only 13K. So if you do need a filler line that has been playing well, like Montreal 2, 3.3 expected goals for, 4.4 actual goals for per 60 minutes. Like, Brendan Gallagher has 16 shots in his last 5 games, and they're only playing 13, 14 minutes a night. Like, he's really starting to find his old shooting groove again. So I really don't mind Montreal 2 if you need them as a filler. I just like Montreal 1 more because I want more guys on the top power play unit. But it is the Detroit side I like the best here. Let's face facts. That Detroit top line's been really good this year. Even if they've been outscoring their expected goals by a little bit, they've been slowing down, and they're down to 4.6 goals per 60 minutes. But that's with like 13.5% shooting, which is a little high, but like, I wouldn't, 12. This line could be 12% over the full course of the season. So I wouldn't expect the goal scoring to really come down that much further. And as you said, Montreal takes a ton of penalties. They're still the second most penalized team in the league, behind only Anaheim. So they're the most penalized team on the slate tonight. Penalty kill hasn't been very good. They're giving up over 1 power play goal against per game, and Detroit's power play has been great. Now, I do have concerns with Wallman running it. Gostisbehere, that's why he was traded. That's why he's on the Detroit Red Wings, right? It's to run a power play. So the fact that they're scratching him against a team that takes a ton of penalties is a little bit of a concern. But Wallman's only 4,400 on DraftKings, so that helps alleviate the concerns a little bit. And they don't need 2 or 3 power play goals. Like, they really only need 1 and then do a bit of damage at even strength, where the matchup still favor Detroit. So Detroit 1 is easily my favorite line here in this game. I'll bring up top stacks. You said they're not coming in with a lot of ownership. 9% top 2 stack percentage, 4.8% expected ownership on that top line. So, yeah, Detroit 1 for me in this game. I don't mind Montreal 1. I might leave Montreal 2 as a filler, but it's Detroit 1 that I think is really the home run for single entry players.
Yeah, and we'll get to defensemen at the end, but Wallman is not going to be on the point. He's going to be on one of the walls, I think, which is kind of weird. I think they were doing that with Ghost, though, and they like run a 1-3-1 power play, which is kind of strange, but I don't know. Wallman shooter, so. And Montreal does draw a lot of power plays. They don't do too much with it, though. But, if they're going to get like 5-6 tonight, I think they are a good play as well. Let's move on to the next game here, the main event of the early games. Vancouver Canucks with a 3.5 total heading into Ottawa. The Senators have a 3.3 total. Senators went into Toronto and laid pipe. I mean, we'll talk, we don't have time to just sit here and bash Toronto, but holy crap, does Klingberg look lost on the ice?
We always have time to bash Toronto.
Klingberg was a -4 last night. He is lost. He doesn't, anytime there's a rush coming at him, he is just dizzy. Anyway, $4 million. Eric Gustafsson, $800,000. They both got signed to run the power play. Anyway, I played Ottawa 1 last night. Brady Tkachuk, Josh Norris, Drake Batherson. They had the first 2 shots of the game. They had 3 shots in goal the rest of the way. Didn't do shit. Now, Thatcher Demko's not in tonight. I watched a lot of that game. I don't particularly love the way that Tkachuk, Norris, Batherson looked. On paper, it's a very good line. Eye test, didn't pass it. So I'm not particularly sure what I want to do with Ottawa here. Now, Vancouver, probably not the best penalty kill, probably not the best defensively, especially when you get past the Hughes-Hronik pairing. You could power play stack, and Ottawa 1 is fully correlated. So I guess that is a route. Now, what to do on Vancouver side is a bit more interesting because their 5-on-5 numbers are bad. There's no coding it. They've been bad. They've been hot with their shooting percentage. They're also very reliant on the power play. Now, this is a very good power play spot, and this total's pushing 7. I feel like this is an important game, and there's not much ownership here.
Yeah, for that very reason, like I wrote up Vancouver in my picks article today. Free to read. If anybody wants to go check it out, over at stochastic.com. I wrote about the Colorado top line and the Vancouver second line. And I wrote about the Vancouver second line for this very specific reason. I was looking at how Vancouver has done on the road so far this year. And one thing Vancouver does is they play the Quinn Hughes-Philip Hronik pairing a lot with JT Miller, like way more than they do with Elias Pettersson. And that's because they kind of use JT Miller as like a checking shutdown line. They also are a scoring line, obviously. But what that does is it gives JT Miller's line like by far the best defense pairing that Vancouver has, like one of the best defense pairings in the league so far this season.
When Hughes currently the favorite for the North.
Yeah, completely. And when they have Quinn Hughes on the ice with them, their numbers are fairly respectable. It's just things get pretty hairy when he's not on the ice with them. But if Quinn Hughes is going to play a ton of minutes with JT Miller and Brock Besser, and they're going to be in what is, like you said, it's a good power play spot for Vancouver. Like Vancouver is usually in good power play spots, like regardless. But Ottawa's penalty kill, like their goaltending's just been terrible. Save percentage under 800 on the BK. Vancouver really doesn't need to generate a lot on the penalty kill, or on the power play, even though they can. So the fact that Miller and Besser are going to play a lot with Quinn Hughes, they're probably going to see more of the Tim Stützle line. And like Stützle and Giroux, pretty good offensively, really good offensively. I mean, we saw that last night. They single-handedly won the game in the third period, or double-handedly. I don't know how that works.
I think the Leafs lost it in the third period.
Yeah, fair enough. But they have been fairly leaky defensively. And then you look at the Ottawa blue line, like the team's averaging like 39 shots against since they lost Brandstrom and Shabbat and Zub to injury. So you're going to get a bad defensive line as a matchup, and you're going to get Quinn Hughes behind you, and you're going to get a depleted blue line with a backup goalie in net. I really like Vancouver too here tonight. If you want to turn to a power play stack, like I think that's a great idea. Like, take out DiGiuseppe, make it a little bit more expensive by adding Pettersson, make it a double center, something like that. I just think the Vancouver top 6 is just too much to pass up. I'm leaning JT Miller and Brock Besser because they play more with Hughes, but I don't have any problem playing anybody on the Vancouver top 6. For that reason, I agree with you. I don't like the composition of that Ottawa top line, but if they're going to avoid Quinn Hughes and Philip Hronik a fair amount here tonight, I don't mind the idea of playing them. They're probably going to have to play heavy minutes again. They're only coming in with 6% ownership. They're cheap on DK. They're under $19,000, cheap enough. All in the top power play units. So yeah, like I have absolutely no issues using Ottawa 1 here tonight. I just think I'd rather take the cheaper line coming in with less ownership that I think is in a better spot in the JT Miller line. But I love the Vancouver top 6 here.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to power play stack. I have to see what I'm going to do with Ottawa because you make some good points you're telling me how bad they were without Hughes and Hronik on the ice. It's a scene. Before we go to the next one, we have a $6.99 Canadian super chat. That is like 48 cents American. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you. Thank you very much. Could be Travis. I'm not sure on the conversions. I honestly don't. Took third in the 88 for 800 on Tuesday. Not bad for a basketball guy. As a man from Toronto who now lives in Vancouver, there's always time to bash Toronto. That is true. There is always time to bash Toronto. Vancouver, very lovely city, very expensive, but congrats to you.
Yeah, congrats on that night. Hopefully we can help you to a first place in that contest here soon. But enjoy your time in Vancouver and enjoy the meltdowns whenever they happen from the hockey media, because those are always priceless.
Yeah. That goal that Giroux scored because Wall fumbled the puck was almost as bad as anything Klingberg did.
Fair point.
Let's Ilya Samsonov, great goalie. Let's move on to the next game here. Minnesota Wild with a 3.1 total heading into the Madison Square Garden. The New York Rangers have a 3.3 total. Igor out, Johnny Quick out. Rangers going with Arizona Coyotes legend Luis Domingue in net tonight. Obviously, Fox and Hedl are still out. Wheeler still up on that top line. I am in a bit of conundrum here.
Mm-hmm.
Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider, decent defensive, like pretty good defensive numbers, actually really good defensive numbers with Capo Caco up there. Now Blake Wheeler's up there. They're going to get the Boldy, Rossi, Kaprizov line. They're getting no ownership, like under 2%. They're fully correlated on the power play. Now, the Rangers don't take a ton of penalties, but penalty kill without Adam Fox, he's one of their best penalty killers. They have their third string emergency goalie going in Luis Domingue. Now, he's been in the NHL. He's played in the NHL. He actually played a lot of the series against the Rangers when the Rangers played.
He was a playoff goalie for the Lightning, wasn't he?
For the Penguins when...
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, that's right.
Like, he's serviceable, but at the same time, like, Kaprizov, Boldy, Rossi, fully correlated. Not a lot of ownership. I like them. Now, that's fine. Now, on the flip side, the Rangers are getting a fair bit of ownership, which makes sense because the Wild are a tire fire defensively. Their goaltending has been awful. I just don't want to stack a line with Blake Wheeler on it coming in at 8%. If anything for the Rangers, I'm going to that second line. They're coming in just under 10%, which feels high for an 11-game slate. But again, you can take off Lafreniere, put on Kreider, put on Zibanejad, put on Gustafsson for power play stack. Like the Wild penalty kills trash. They take a fair bit of penalties, so I understand the Rangers' ownership. I like both sides of this game.
Are people just memory holding that these two teams played against each other 5 days ago without Fox and Hedl in the lineup, and the Wild outshot them 39-18 and won the game 5-4?
The Rangers had a 3-0 lead and blew it.
Yeah, and Minnesota wildly, pun intended, outplayed them. I really like that Minnesota line. There's the ownership that you were talking about. 5.6% top two stack, 1.9% ownership on the top line. Somewhat expensive at 18,200. Like Rossi's starting to climb up. Obviously, Kaprizov still always expensive. But no Fox, no Hedl. You're down to your AHL goalie. We just saw this very Minnesota lineup minus Kalen Addison plus Zach Bogosian basically run over the Rangers 5 days ago. I'm with you. I do like that Minnesota top line here. They've looked good. They haven't looked great. I think the issues are more defensive than anything, and they're probably going to look a lot better once Jared Spurgeon gets back. But I'm with you. It's just too much to pass up at 2% ownership. If I was 20 maxing, I'm definitely getting some of that Minnesota line in. I'm questioning whether to put them in my lineup right now as it is in a single entry. So yeah, I do like Minnesota 1. I don't know if I would dip down to Minnesota 2. They're probably going to run into that Trocheck, Panarin, Lafreniere line. Typically very good defensively this season with Hedl there. I can't imagine it's going to be much of a drop off of Trocheck. They're used to playing with the second pair defensemen and what have you. So I think it's Minnesota 1 or bust for me. I wrote up Chris Kreider in the picks article today for this simple reason is like, I think the Rangers might struggle a little bit at 5-on-5, but on the power play, they're still going to beat Minnesota's brains in, right? Like Minnesota does have legitimately one of the worst penalty kills in the league so far this season. They're giving up the 7th most shot attempts, 2nd most shots, and most goals against of any team in the league on the penalty kill so far this season. And Eric Gustafsson, he's not Adam Fox at 5-on-5, nowhere close, but on the power play, he's a serviceable replacement for Adam Fox. So I kind of like the Rangers top line here going up against what I think is going to be a weak Minnesota top line, but I wouldn't hate just turning it into a power play stack. Like, keep Blake Wheeler off and add Panarin or add Trocheck. Like Trocheck, I think, played 21 minutes the other game, their last game with Hedl not in the lineup. So, a double center lineup with like Zibanejad, Trocheck, and then add Kreider or add Panarin or something like that. I think that's the way I'd attack the Rangers. I like that kind of stack. On the Minnesota side, I do like Minnesota 1 quite a bit, though.
Yeah, and I try to stay away from the homer takes, but Chris Kreider is legitimately one of the best net fronts on a power play in the NHL.
And it's been like that for like 3 or 4 years now.
He's turned himself into a bulldozing power forward with a 0 IQ to having like a really good niche. So you like to see. What are you guys waiting for? You sign up using the link in the description box below to get access to the best NHL data and tools in the industry. You get player and ownership projections, top stacks tool, line combinations, and access to the best Discord in the land, which is invaluable. There are so many sharp minds in there. You're always going to get access to Cliffy's article. It's free almost every day. Our show is obviously free, but if you're looking to take your game to the next level with player and ownership projections, top stacks, line combination, Discord, click that link in the description below. Get in Discord, say it came from the show. We'll give you a warm welcome. Clayton will give you the rules, and we'll go from there. Let's talk about the Blackhawks, shall we? Chicago Blackhawks with a 2.7 total. Heading into Tampa Bay, the Lightning have a 3.9 total. Lightning have a 3.9 total and no ownership. That just speaks volumes to Edmonton, who has a 4.3 total against San Jose, right? So if you assume Edmonton's going to be chalk, which they will be, you're going to get a line of Kucherov, Point, and Hagel at lower ownership. Now, it might come up during the day. It might even double to like 8 to 9%. I'm still super interested in there at that price, at that ownership. Hagel on the top line looks so much better than Hagel anywhere else. Kucherov's been an animal recently. Paul Stamkos on the top power play. I really like Tampa power play here. Now, the Hawks, I will say the Hawks penalty kill, surprisingly decent in a large sample going back to last year. But it's one of those things like we just talked about the Rangers. Even when the Rangers power play is in a bad power play spot, they still can get you there. So I don't mind a Tampa Bay power play stack, but I think Tampa 1 is easily my favorite line in this game. On the Chicago side, like I guess you could play Bedard, but his back's got to be hurting him from carrying Nick Foligno body around the ice. Like, I don't know. Like outside of maybe Bedard one-off or a Hall one-off or Seth Jones one-off, don't have too much interest in the Hawks.
Yeah, I'm not going to take much time with Chicago. I'm with you, like one-off Bedard or something like that. Like before the season, I said I think Bedard's going to have like an Austin Matthews rookie season, which is like 40 goals and maybe like 25 assists. And that's kind of what he's on pace on for right now, right? Like he just doesn't have anybody to play with. Like Phil Kershev and Nick Foligno's not going to do it, man. Yeah, certainly Bedard one-off is fine. That's pretty much it. I'm not going to waste my time talking about Chicago. It is the Tampa Bay side. Like you were talking about the ownership. There's the top stacks. 4% on the top line, 3% on the second line, a little over 4% as a filler stack third line. We got my Mikey Esimont goal the other night, and he hit the crossbar too. That could have been a big night for him. Like I'm a real big fan of that Tampa third line. Cirelli and Esimont in particular. Like Esimont, he's a high volume shooter. He's a great forechecker. The second and third lines from the Chicago team are trash. Like I'm perfectly fine like 2-man stacking like Cirelli and Esamont, Cirelli and Chanel. Like you want to 3-man stack them, like I mean, go ahead. This could be one of those games where Tampa only plays their top guys like 17 minutes and gives a lot more time to the bottom 6 because Tampa's been playing a lot of hockey. It's what 4 and 6 nights for them or something like that tonight. Tampa's been playing a lot of hockey. Maybe they want to rest their top guys. They shouldn't need to play Kucherov 22 minutes or whatever here tonight. So I don't mind picking a couple guys from that third line. I love that they put Brandon Hagel back on the top line. Like Hagel's turning into one of my favorite players to watch. Like I hate that I like watching this Tampa Bay team, but I really do. Like Hagel, he's just one of those, Swiss Army knives. He's a good playmaker. He's a good finisher. He's a good forechecker. He's good off the rush, et cetera, et cetera. Like Chicago fumbled the bag with this one, but then, they did that with Dylan Strome as well and so on and so forth. I don't get me wrong. I love Tampa 1 here tonight. All things considered, I think they're my favorite even strength line on the entire slate here. But 2 things. One, like there are some lines you can play at around that ownership that are also in pretty good spots or, serviceable spots anyway. You have like the new Boston top line go at home against the Islanders. You have Detroit 1, which is a little bit cheaper, but still very much serviceable. Some sort of Edmonton stack, McDavid and Draisaitl plus Fogle or something like that is right in that price range. So there are other ways, to get a really expensive stack in a really good spot here tonight. Chicago's had a pretty good penalty kill. That's what worries me here is there's one thing Chicago is doing well. It's their penalty kill. They're giving up the 7th fewest shot attempts per minute while on the PK, 5th fewest shots. They're giving up fewer shots on the penalty kill than teams like Boston, Los Angeles, and Vegas. And not only that, they're giving up fewer goals as well. Like they're giving up fewer goals. They're giving up about the same amount of goals per minute on the penalty kill as Vegas. It's the one thing we always talk about that Chicago does well is they kill penalties very well, and they don't take a lot of penalties to begin with. So if the top line only plays 17, 18 minutes here tonight, and they don't get a lot of power play time, I probably want the guys from the second, thirds, and third line especially a little bit more. So I think, I do really like Tampa 1. I think, like I said, they're my favorite even strength line on the slate. But I think considering the power play spot and considering how good that third line is for Tampa and how bad the depth is from Chicago at 5-on-5, I think I'd kind of like Esamont, Cirelli, and Jeannot here tonight.
Yeah, I mean, my Jonas Donskoy is your Mikey Esamont, so I don't mind them. I just happen to like a third line in another game, and let's get to that game. Dallas Stars with a 3.6 total heading into Columbus. The Blue Jackets have a 2.5 total. That third line that I am referencing is Duchesne, Sagan, and Marchment, 10,600. Now they're getting a lot of ownership because they probably could fit with Colorado 1, with Edmonton power play, yada, yada, yada. So in that sense, from an ownership standpoint, maybe I would go to Cirelli and Esamont. I think they're both fine. I just got to make sure Duchesne's in. Interestingly enough, Dallas won 18,300, which is wildly, wildly cheap for them. Getting a fair bit of ownership here, coming in projected around 13%. Understandable. They're very efficient. Blue Jackets aren't very good. They're talented. They're fun. They're just not very good. So, I don't know if I want to play Dallas 1 at 18,300 at that ownership. Like when you can get Detroit 1 at 4%, when you can get even Boston 1 way lower owned. There's other lines in that price range that are lower owned. I understand the play. You're just hoping for maximum efficiency here. I like Dallas depth a little bit better. If you don't want to eat the 8% on Duchesne, Sagan, Marchment, you can go to Wyatt Johnson, Jamie Benn. It's the same deal like that Cliffy just explained with Tampa. Their top guys aren't going to play, 18, 19, 20 minutes. That top line for Dallas is going to play 16, 17 minutes. Duchesne, Sagan are going to play 16, 17 minutes. Ben Johnson going to play 16, 17 minutes. So in that scenario, you go down the lineup, you get savings. You get Ben on the top power play. Wyatt Johnson's an animal. The Duchesne Marchment line has really good 5-on-5 numbers. So I really like Dallas here tonight. It's not a secret. I just gushed about them. Maybe I'll propose or something, but you have any interest on the other side?
No, I have no interest in Columbus. Like, I'm not even going to bother talking about them. It is the Dallas side that I'm very interested in here tonight. And this is why, is you mentioned their price, 18,300 on DraftKings. Like, they're way more expensive on FanDuel. I think they're over 24K on FanDuel. Even when you factor in like the relative salary cap differences, like it's way, way more expensive. So like, there's not going to be much ownership on Dallas one on FanDuel. Here's the thing is they're being priced down because they weren't playing a lot of minutes. They've been getting more minutes lately. Jason Roberts' last 5 games, he's at 20 minutes a game exactly. And both Pavelski and Hintz are over 18 minutes a night. There were, in the first 3 weeks of the season, Robertson was playing like 17 minutes and Pavelski and Hintz were like around 16. Now, the problem is kind of like you mentioned, is when you're playing a team like Columbus, assuming that Dallas wins this game, which, you know, hockey is a very, very weird sport. We've seen teams go into like Columbus and Anaheim when the teams were very bad and get their brains beat in just because, you know, the teams are taking a night off or something like that. But the Dallas top line is being priced down as if they're for sure only going to play 16, 17 minutes. And they might end up playing 19 or 20. That's kind of the problem I'm running into here is I agree with you. I don't think they're going to play a lot, but they have been playing more lately. And it's putting that kind of little like nagging voice in the back of my head. Like, these guys are going to go off eventually. These guys are going to smash the slate eventually. You know what I mean? And, you know, I think Hintz and Pavelski had a game last week where they both had 3 points. It was just Jason Robertson just didn't get involved. It's a great matchup for them at 5-on-5. Like, the top line with Jack Roslovic there, 3 expected goals against per 60 minutes, 4.5 actual goals against. Spencer Martin being in net for Columbus is kind of weird because he's actually had a good start to the season, a much better one than Merzlikins. So that's giving me a little bit of a pause, but everything about this matchup favors the Dallas top line. Like, the Columbus penalty kill has been riding great goaltending. That penalty kill itself has not been very good. Dallas might get 18 to 20 minutes, their top line. They have been great this year, 4 goals per 60 minutes, 5-on-5. That's about what they've been scoring for years now. You talked about their efficiency. I don't know, man. Like, I get wanting to play Detroit or whatever at that price. The ownership is a lot. That's what's kind of holding me back from really playing Dallas is like, I don't want to play a Dallas line that is a threat to only play 16 or 17 minutes here tonight at 15% plus ownership. That's what's holding me back from playing them. People aren't that concerned about ownership, and I really don't consider ownership a huge concern on an 11-game slate. I really like Dallas one here. Like, I just can't get around the fact that they've been playing more minutes lately, and eventually they're going to drop the hammer on us, and it's going to be swift and it's going to be brutal.
Yeah, and it'd be nice if it was at 3% and not 15. But I do agree with you on the ownership. It really doesn't matter. There's so many ways to get different on an 11-game slate. So we're both in on Dallas one. I also like Dallas depth. Fun times ahead. Arizona Coyotes with a 3.2 total heading into St. Louis. The Blues have a 3.3 total. Let me pull up these lines. I was in La La Land apparently when you were talking about Dallas. There we go. Oh no, I had it up. Here we go with the St. Louis lines. Always negative leverage because they're super cheap. I just don't like these lines. It's simple as that. Like, I get it from a real hockey perspective. Maybe I don't. Like, they're trying to get 3 competent lines. Now they have 3 idiotic lines. So, like, I don't know. Like, Berube's going full galaxy brain, but like, I just don't want to play negative leverage St. Louis.
No.
It's just like Verona went up with Buchnevich and Thomas last game. They looked decent, and then they went back to Kapanen today. Like, I understand, like, they want to have Kyrou with Shen for whatever reason. That's fine. But, like, I don't know. These St. Louis lines just make me want to throw myself down a flight of metal stairs. And then on the flip side, like, Arizona won. You wouldn't want that? Yeah, it would probably hurt. But Barrett Hayton still doesn't have a point this season.
Oh, he scored in the last game.
Did he?
Yeah.
had a
checked out of the Arizona games.
Yeah, checked it. Tuesday was a long day for me, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
If you want to go back to Arizona 1, I think that's perfectly fine. They're under 18,000. They're coming in 2% projected. I don't mind going back to Arizona 2 as a filler. Like they're getting way less ownership than the Dallas depth. They've been very good. The Blues depth is just bad. I couldn't even think of an adjective or verb. I don't even know English right now. Who you like in this game?
So it's pretty interesting the way that Arizona's kind of rejigged their lines since Jason Zucker got hurt. Like Logan Cooley was the genuine second line center for the first couple weeks of the season. He was playing like 19 minutes a game. That's not been the case. Like there are games where he's going to play a lot of minutes because of the power play and all that, but they've turned the Michelli line into a genuine second line for them. You and I, biggest Michelli fans on planet Earth. I wrote him up in the picks article.
Besides Mama Michelli.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I've never met her. I might be a bigger fan of her sons than she is. I wrote up Michelli in the picks article today. 1.82 even strength assists per 60 minutes last year. 95th percentile of all forwards. So far this season, he's 85th percentile of all forwards. I sent out some messages earlier today about how on a per minute basis, he has a higher even strength assist rate than guys like Jason Robertson and Artemi Panarin since the start of last year. He's genuinely one of the best playmakers in the league, but he's also adding some shots to his profile. That was the thing that was missing. He just didn't shoot a lot. He was like a Michael Granlund or Alex Wenberg or something like that. He's not shooting a ton. He's only at 1.8 shots per game, but that is a lot more shooting. And the bonus here is that you're not going to get the Pavel Buchnevich line, which I think would be the best defensive line from St. Louis. You're not going to get that matchup. That's going to go into the Arizona top line. So you're going to get second and third line matchups from the Blues. The Blues have been, just about every line has been bad, but their depth lines have been especially terrible. That Arizona line is coming in with a bit high ownership. Like they're coming in over leveraged. I'll bring up top stacks real quick. 1% top two stack, 2.7% ownership. Honestly, that's fine for me. Like, I really don't care at that point. Like, you know what I mean? They're going to come in with under 3% ownership. I'm not that concerned about negative leverage. I think it's just a tremendous matchup for them. There have been some nights where they played in the upper teens for minutes, like 17, 18, 19 minutes. Lawson Krause has been scoring lately. Nick Bjugstad has obviously been chipping in. I really like that Arizona second line in this matchup. That's one of the filler lines that I'm looking towards on this slate. On the St. Louis side, it's bad chalk. Like, there's just no way around it, right? Like, anybody that remembers watching the show last year, basically the final third of the season, like every single game Nashville was at home, they would carry 15, 20% ownership because every single line was like $11,000 on DraftKings. So people kept playing. It was like, here's a top line playing 18 minutes, priced at $11K. It's not quite that for St. Louis. I think there's more talent on this St. Louis team than the end of the season in Nashville last year. But I'm not going to play a St. Louis line that this team sucks. Like, there's just no way around it. I'm not going to play a St. Louis line that is going to be triple their top stack percentage when I can play an actually good Arizona line. Like, at least the Arizona line is out-chancing their opponents. The St. Louis lines are not doing that. So Arizona 2, I really like as a filler stack here. Like, if I were to play anything on the St. Louis side, like, I suppose it would be the Shen Kairu 2-man because, as good as the Arizona second line is offensively, they do give up their fair share of chances. And you do get Kairu and Shen on the top power play. Kairu is the shooter on the team, basically. So you don't even need a ton of goals. He can get there with, the 5-shot bonus or whatever, plus an assist or something. So I don't mind St. Louis too, but it's Arizona too that I like the best in this game.
Yeah. And I forgot what I was going to say, because with Nashville chalk last year, what did we say? If it burns me, it burns me. You know what I mean?
Thing. Like if like a 9% Braden Shen gets a hat trick tonight, like I'll sleep snug and soundly in my bed tonight, knowing I still made the right decision. It just didn't work out tonight.
Yeah, if Kasperi Kapanen couldn't even make it on the fourth line in Pittsburgh and he beats me in DFS tonight, top line Kasperi Kapanen, and like, good for you, Kasperi.
Yeah.
I'll be back tomorrow making a fool of myself on YouTube again. So here we go. Let's talk about the flow chart. Nashville Predators with a 2.8 total. Heading into Winnipeg, the Jets have a 3.2 total. We got flow charted on Tuesday. Bad.
Sometimes the flow chart comes for thee.
Yeah. Woo. They were the best line of the night. They were in all the winning lineups. I don't know what to make of this because, again, right, the flow chart says if this is an easier matchup, which is kind of is, you fade. But the caveat to that is they have to have high ownership. And they're coming in at 3% projected. And the thing is, like, with Iafallo up there with Scheifele and Connor, they hadn't been good literally at all until that game. Now, line matching kind of important here. If they're going to see a fair bit of that O'Reilly-Forsberg line, then it's kind of but once you get past them and you get past Yossi, you get past Carrier and McDonough, it's just a whole lot of bleh. So I kind of, at 19-1, it's another one of these lines, right? You throw them in with Dallas 1, you throw them in with Detroit 1 in that price range that are not getting a ton of ownership that I have interest in. Now, on the flip side, no one's playing Nashville 1 here. And that line with Gustav Nyquist up there has been ridiculously good offensive, at least from expected numbers. Now, finishing is another issue. Philip Forsberg is the most snake-bitten person I've ever met in my life. I actually haven't met him, but like I feel like if I did, he'd be the most snake-bitten person I've ever met. So I kind of like both top lines here.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good 5-on-5 matchup for Winnipeg's top line, even if they get the second and third lines, because like the second and third lines from Nashville have still been pretty good defensively, right? Like the Novak line is at 2.4 expected goals against per 60 minutes. That's a little bit better than league average. The training line, I think, is at around 2.1 or 2.2. Like that's a lot better than the league average. And then you're facing UC Saros on top of that, right? Like though, like it doesn't matter which line you face from Nashville. It's going to be a tough 5-on-5 matchup. Where Nashville is getting in trouble is on the penalty kill because their penalty kill has not been very good. So far this season, Nashville is giving up the 5th most shot attempts on the penalty kill so far this season. It's leading to the 2nd most goals against per minute of penalty kill time so far this year. The Winnipeg power play has just not been very good. And honestly, it's just not, it hasn't really been that good since Paul Maurice left. I was reading a Twitter thread from a Winnipeg writer that I follow, like an analytics blogger. And he was talking about how the big problem with their power play is that everything goes to Kyle Connor, right? It's kind of like the old Ovechkin thing where almost every shot that the team takes is going to end up coming from Kyle Connor. So that's basically what they're setting up all the time. Except Kyle Connor's not Alex Ovechkin. Like he's a very good goal scorer, one of the top 20 goal scorers in the NHL. Alex Ovechkin might be the greatest goal scorer that the league has ever seen. Like you cannot compare those two people, and you cannot run a power play the same way. So it's one of those things. Like, if Winnipeg gets 1 goal at even strength, they probably need 2 on the power play to really have, at least 2 on the power play. Maybe 1 on the power play, 1 empty net or something like that. But it seems like it's a pretty you're drawing pretty thin to what they have to do to succeed here tonight. But at that ownership, I think it's just fine. In a single entry, I don't think I would play Winnipeg here tonight. Once I get to like 20 max and above, then you really do have to consider them. Just because at 2-3% ownership, the Nashville penalty kill is bad enough to give up 2 or 3 goals in a game. That's the thing. And that's the concern I have about not playing Winnipeg. But I don't think I'm going to be playing them personally. On the Nashville side, hey, it is interesting here because they're going to be going up against the Mason Appleton, Adam Lowry line. Now, that line has actually been good defensively. I got to think it's because of Lowry and Niederreiter and not because of Mason Appleton, but he's there, so it's happening. But the Winnipeg penalty kill itself has not been very good this year. The 5th most goals against per minute on the season. Now, a lot of it has been the goaltending. A lot of it has been miscues. Like, I'd watch enough Winnipeg games to know, like, a missed mark on the penalty kill, fumbling on a clear that should have gone out and the puck stays in and now everybody's scrambling. Those are the types of mistakes that are killing the Winnipeg penalty kill. It's not that it's a bad PK itself. It's just that they can't stop making mistakes that lead to basically a goal against per game while they're shorthanded. So if I do that, I want to get guys on the power play, and that means going to Nashville 1. So if anything from the Nashville side, it would be that Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist line, only coming in at 1% ownership, 16,800 on DraftKings. Perfectly acceptable to use here tonight. But I think if anything, I would play the Winnipeg side here, the Winnipeg top line. But I'm going to be honest, in my single entry, I don't think it's a game I'm going to consider.
Yeah, I should clarify. I do like this game from an MME perspective. Will they make it into my single entry lineup? They are circled, but chances are they won't. As we mentioned off the hop of the show, we are sponsored by Vivid Picks. Easy, Haas. No Jenna Jameson. This is DFS. Get a $300 deposit match on your first deposit. The standard deposit match is $100, so you won't get this offer anywhere else other than using the link in the description below. Your first entry on Viv Picks, that sounds sexy, comes with a $25 secure play. If you lose your first entry, you get refunded up to $25 in Viv site credit. Predict whether the players will have more or less than their projected stats across multiple sports, and combine your selections for bigger payouts. So click that link in the description below, get your $300 deposit match and $25 secure play from Viv Picks. Let's move on to the I have an issue. I got problems. Let's move on to we all know. Let's move on to the next one. Seattle Kraken with a 2.7 total. Heading into Colorado, the Avs have a 3.7 total. Here we go again. Like, if Edmonton wasn't on this slate, Colorado would get a lot of ownership here. Now they're putting Arturi Lehkonen back up on the top line, so that makes the top line for Colorado 24,400. That is expensive, and that is why their projected ownership is under 2%. Seattle just is like, if you look up the definition of average, you would see a picture of the Seattle Kraken logo. Like, that's just how I feel about the Kraken right now. Colorado top line, interesting play here, because anytime you can get McKinnon and Rantanen for that low of ownership on a slate with McDavid, with all these big guns, like, it piques my interest. Well, I get there in single entry, 24,400 is an expensive pill to swallow. I think in MME, if I was 20 maxing 150, I'd be way over the field, and it wouldn't take much to get way over the field on Colorado 1 here. Now, in single entry, it's a tougher call. There are some depth lines that I like, but there's also a ton of lines in the $16,000 to $18,000 range in matchups that I like as well. So this game's a bit of an enigma from Colorado 1 perspective. On the flip side, I guess on Seattle, it'd be the Bjorkstrand, Gord, Tolvanen line. But, like, again, they're super cheap. It just feels like it's so hard to nail down Seattle.
Yeah. Couple notes on Seattle. Obviously, Jordan Eberle's not going to be playing. He took a skate cut to his leg. Man, that's tough. They said that, but everything's gone well so far. They're calling him day to day, so that's good news. They called up Shane Wright. I haven't seen. I was just searching on Twitter. I haven't seen any line combinations or anything like that.
I'm gonna play 7 minutes on the fourth line.
It makes me wonder what they're going to do with their lines, because Eberle was playing with Schwartz and Wenberg. Schwartz and Wenberg played a lot together last year and weren't very good. Like, they were good defensively, but they couldn't create any offense. So, assuming somebody like Ty Cartier or whatever moves up to that line, like, I'm not going to play them. I'm not playing a line with Kyler Yamamoto. I went through all that since he got moved up. I went over that on the show on Tuesday. I'm not playing a line with Kyler Yamamoto on it. So I agree with you. It's Bjorkstrand, Tolvanen, and Gord. Over 60 shot attempts per 60 minutes, 2.9 expected goals per 60 minutes since being put together. Under 3% ownership, you're going to avoid the top line for Colorado. They're split across the power play units, but with Eberle out, I'm not sure exactly what they're going to do. And they seem to be changing the power play units almost every game anyway. So, like, it doesn't really matter to me. But they have been good at 5-on-5. Colorado's, they've been fine, certainly, but they do have guys going in and out of the lineup. I don't mind Gord and Bjorkstrand here tonight, but it is Colorado 1. I mentioned them in that picks article. I'll show everybody just their ownership is low. Oh, sorry. 28% top two stack.
Raro there.
11% ownership. One thing I mentioned is that if you want to save some money, like you can take off Arturi Lehkonen and put in Ryan Johansson. I think it saves $1,500 on DraftKings. $1,500 can go a long way when you're playing a line that expensive. Seattle's penalty kill has really, really struggled so far this year, allowing shots, expected goals, bad penalty kill, save percentage, everything. If I'm playing Colorado here tonight, I want to focus on their 4 power play forwards. Like I said, I think you can just take off Lehkonen and put in Ryan Johansson. It's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah. Let's move on to the 2 late games that we're going to be staying out for. Unfortunately, the Pittsburgh Penguins with a 3.2 total heading into Los Angeles. The Kangs, our Kings, have a 3.4 total. Kings won last night 4-1. Cam Talbot looked good, so it's probably going to be Phoenix Copley in net. Tristan Yarry is out, so Delkovich is their backup. He's probably starting tonight.
No, he's hurt.
He's hurt.
It's Hellboy, isn't it? Magnus Hellboy.
Yeah. I knew that at the beginning of the show, and anyway, we don't have time for that kind of shenanigans. No ownership on Pittsburgh. Literally none on Pittsburgh 1. As Jake mentioned in our little work chat, he's going to go broke playing them because he keeps playing them. They have like over 4.5 expected goals per 60 minutes. They just can't finish. It's a finishing issue. Eventually, the dam is going to break. Maybe they need to go spearmint Rhino. I don't know what they need to do. But at 0.3% projected at 22,500, interest in Pittsburgh 1. The more interesting thing is what to do with the Kings, because as good as the Crosby, Gensel, Rust line has been offensively, they've been trading chances. So, and the Kopitar Kempe line coming in with the least amount of ownership at the Kings line. I like both top lines here. You want to go to LA 2 or 3, perfectly fine. You want to go to Pittsburgh 2, perfectly fine. There's a lot in this game that I like.
Yeah, I do like Kings 1 the best here. You mentioned their low ownership. This is one of the 16K lines that I was talking about earlier that's coming in with no ownership, 0.7%. They just had a big game last night. They're up to 3.5 expected goals, 3.8 actual goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. They're scoring more than the Pittsburgh second line is, just to kind of put that into context. Now, what worries me is that the Kings' second power play unit has been their better power play unit basically all season, and it was the same thing last year. And last night, they finally got more ice time than the top unit, and the top unit is the one that has Kempe and Kopitar on it. So they might lose some power play time, but Pittsburgh doesn't take a lot of penalties, 3.4 time shorthanded per game. That's below average. So I kind of like going to I don't mind going Kings 1 here. It's Kings 3 that I think I have interest in. It's Danault, Moore, Kaliev. They've been great all season. They played like 16 to 18 minutes last night because of all the additional power play time. Again, they are the better power play unit. I think all 3 guys are on there, or at least 2 out of 3, at least Danault and Kaliev. Yeah. So you're getting a lot of good correlation. They've been phenomenal so far this season. They were great last year together. I really like Kings 3 here, but I think, if I'm playing a ton of lineups, I want to make sure I get some Kings 1 because, like you said, Pittsburgh has been trading chances back and forth. Their top line has been anyway, and that could play really well in Kempe and Kopitar's favor here tonight.
Yeah. I mean, that game's a scene. Let's get to the I don't even want to talk about this game, man. Edmonton Oilers with a 4.3 total. I don't think the Sharks have a 4.3 total combined for all their games this season. Going into San Jose, the Sharks have a 2.5 total somehow because Edmonton is a tire fire defensively. Okay. Edmonton going with 5-on-5 lines of Connor McDavid, Zach Hyman, Ryan McLeod. Why? I don't know. Second line, Leon Draisaitl, Mick Levin, Lauren Fogle, and Dylan Holloway. I don't think I've ever played Dylan Holloway in DFS, so lock him in for a hat trick. Third line of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Evander Kane, Sam Gagner. I'm going to make it quick on the Oilers here, right? The Sharks are bad 5-on-5. They're bad on the penalty kill. I think if I don't play any of the power play, like if I'm going to one off a guy that's not on the power play, it's going to be Warren Foegele. Now I'm going to concentrate on their big power play guys. I'm going to concentrate on Evan Bouchard. But I think like if you want to get away from like the wild McDavid, Draisaitl, Bouchard stacks, I think you can 5-on-5 stack Draisaitl, Foegele. On the Sharks, like you got to consider that top line because Edmonton is just bad. Like, yeah, they have McDavid. Yeah, they have Draisaitl. And yeah, they're going to score goals, but their goaltending's been bad. Their blue line's been bad. Eklund scored on the top line. I think like him and Hurdle are going to get some good chemistry together. I don't mind taking a stab on the Sharks top line tonight.
Yeah, I don't either. And I can't believe I'm saying that. But, talked about them on the last show. And I even wrote up Eklund in my last picks article, and then he went and scored. They are coming in a little bit over-owned, and it's one of those cases like, do I want to play a San Jose top line that's coming in at double their top two stack percentage? And the answer is no. Like it's the same thing with St. Louis. Like I'm just not going to do it. So like if I wake up and a Thomas Hurdle hat trick buries me, I'll just, I'll go get a coffee and just go about my day. Like, screw it. I honestly don't care. I'm not playing a chalky San Jose at any point this season. That's just not something I'm going to do. So the Edmonton side is where things get interesting because Foegele and Draisaitl, we were talking before the show, Foegele and Draisaitl have had pretty good numbers together going back to last year. Even without Connor McDavid on the line with them, 155 minutes together, 3.2 expected goals for, 5 actual goals per 60 minutes. Warren Fogel's averaging over 3 shots per game so far this season. He has the most even strength shots of any Oilers player so far this season. So, like, I agree with you on stacking that Foegele line. If you want to just stack them at even strength, like, go right ahead. And I'll bring up top stacks one last time. Draisaitl, Foegele, Holloway, 3.3%. Top 2 percentage, 3.4 actual. Now, one thing I think you can do, like you don't have to play both McDavid and Draisaitl. Like we like to, but you don't always have to. And you can do something like Draisaitl, Foegele plus Nugent Hopkins, right? You get the 3 guys, you get 2 out of the 3 guys on the power play. You get Draisaitl and Foegele that played so well together. I'm not convinced Ryan McLeod is going to last long on the top line. So I agree with you. If I'm going to even strength stack any Edmonton line, it is that Draisaitl, Foegele, Holloway line. I think I'd be inclined to drop Holloway off the stack and add Nugent Hopkins or add Zach Hyman. Or if you just want to, just go straight to Connor McDavid and do a McDavid, Draisaitl plus Foegele or something like that. Anybody out there that's fading Edmonton, I think I might end up fading Edmonton here tonight. Thoughts and prayers. That's all. You're going to need a lot of luck. But hopefully they come through if you do stack them. But yeah, I agree with you. Draisaitl, Foegele is the 2-man that I really like. And then just add the power play guys that you want after that.
Yeah, because Draisaitl is a wing on DraftKings. So you're going to need a center if you go Draisaitl, Foegele. So yeah, Sharks. And then we've got to talk about him again tomorrow night in Vegas, for the love of God. For the love of God. All right, coming up after us at 4:30, we have the Owner's Box Live with Greg Ehrenberg. Then at 5 p.m. Eastern, NBA Deeper Dive with Josh Engelman and Adam Schur. 6 p.m. NBA Live Before Lock with Lindy and Matt Bellman. 7:15 p.m. Eastern, NFL Showdown Live Before Lock with Lofty and Neal. A lot going on today, so make sure to stay tuned for that. Let's talk a little about defensemen and goalies before we get out of here. Bouchard kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. Who else you liking?
Yeah, Bouchard, obviously going right back to Jake Sanderson, I think makes sense. Like Vancouver's penalty kill still sucks. Like, as good as the rest of the team has been so far this year, the penalty kill is not. Mike Matheson is interesting in that Detroit matchup, but his ice time has been going down. I don't know if I want to pay. I think it's 6,400. So I think Bouchard and Sanderson are the 2 that really kind of stand out to me. Obviously, Darnell Nurse, Matthias Ekholm, like every single defenseman in the Oilers lineup is certainly in play here. Jake Wallman, 4,400. Miro Heiskanen down to 5,200 going into Columbus, I think is a really interesting play. If you don't want to play an expensive Quinn Hughes, play Philip Hronik instead. Hughes makes sense as an expensive guy. There's a pair of $2,500 defensemen if you want to save some cash. Justin Hall for Detroit is $2,500. Zach Bogosian just getting into the lineup from Minnesota, also 2,500. Alex Vlasic for Chicago. He might end up having to block a lot of shots here tonight. He's only 3K. Brandon Carlo's been playing more minutes with all the defensemen Boston's missing. He's 3,400. And obviously, Eric Gustafson, 3,900 for the New York Rangers, still running that power play unit.
Yep. I'll just add on Mario Ferraro at 3,900 as well. He might block 47 shots tonight. Let's talk a little bit about goalies. Spend up options, always fun. Nothing really exciting there besides maybe Jake Ottinger, but I'm probably going to be spending down again. You look down at the bottom of the barrel here. Luis Domingue, min price, obviously sticks out there. You have Peter Mrazek at 7K, although Tampa Bay, not the highest volume team. Spencer Martin, Caden Primo. Like, there's just not a lot of goalies. Like, Sorokin kind of sticks out. Joel Hofer. I get, like, there's not one where I go, I probably should put him in my lineup. Who you liking?
I mean, I did that with Sorokin. I'm sorry, 7,400 in Boston. Boston's not the high-scoring team that they've typically been. So, Sorokin might see a lot of shots, but not necessarily a lot of goals. So I do like Sorokin. I also like Ullmark in that game. Like, I think two of my four favorite goalies on the slate are in the same game, and I always hate that. But I do like Sorokin and Ullmark, or whomever starts. Is it Swayman?
No one's confirmed there yet.
Okay. Sorokin and then whoever starts for Boston. I agree on Spencer Martin for Columbus. I like him. He's been playing well so far this season. I liked him in Vancouver as well. Surprised that they let him go. Louis Domingue. Louis Domingue for super cheap. This is going to be hard to pass up at 6,500.
Yeah, I feel like he's going to be popular with the Edmonton Stackers. That's just what it's going to be. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
I'm taking a page out of your book. I'm going a little bit spicy here tonight. Not too much spice. Maybe like a 3-alarm chili spice. Luke Evangelista.
Ooh, I like that. I'm going 3 million Scoville units spicy tonight. I don't think you're ready for this. I'm going Lucas Raymond.
Okay. I really hope not, because he's playing my Habs, but, good luck.
All right. We will be back tomorrow to break down more Sharks action. Remember, Vivid Picks. And you can sign up for premium by clicking the link in the description below. Make sure to smash that like on the way out. Sure, we'll have some Marvels talk tomorrow. It's a 6-game slate. We'll have a little time for some chit-chat. So good luck, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Good luck tonight, everyone.